Hello and welcome to another episode of Darts in Dublin. And today, a Bujadactus and a Giovanni, whose rank I have no idea what it is, but I think it's the liaison to the Sabat. I had a nice quiet chat in a ye olde Irish pub at a nice private function room away from the prying ears of mortals and hopefully obfuscated Nosferatu.
Excellent. Severo's going to show up, and God, I haven't played this character in ages, so bear with me. It's been about a month. Severo is going to arrive looking much as he is, except he does have... He no longer travels alone. Like, you probably saw him... The last time you've seen this character was at the main Sabbat cathedral. Or prison. Yes. Sorry, there we go.
Yes.
At the prison. And at that time, he was escorted by a single kindred, Byron's character.
Yes.
This time, he's got 3 other people with him. I almost asked what sites you have up. Sorry. If you're paying attention, 2 of them look like they're definitely pale and or not breathing. The third one is actually kind of more ruddy-cheeked. He definitely is alive, or else doing a really good job of pretending. All 3 of them are well-dressed, along with Severo. Once they enter the room, he's going to look around momentarily. I assume you've booked... It's basically like a private drawing room, basically, or dining room, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's a modest pub function room. Yeah, well, so there's a round table, there's some chairs. There's some nice leather armchairs for probably assisting. Patrick ordered a drink to keep up appearances.
He's going to motion, and the man who looks like he's alive, along with one of the other bodyguards, they're going to take a seat at I'm going to assume there's like another booth or another table that we're not using in this room. Yeah, sure. And they're going to take that spot near the doorway, basically just watching it. And the last of them, who is also a vampire, clearly, is going to take a seat not far away from the table where you're at, just basically watching the interaction. Someone is paranoid.
Okay. I'm pretty paranoid now. But yes.
But he's just going to calmly go over and seat himself opposite you. He smiles. Actually, well, he's not going to seat himself first. The appropriate thing for him to do is to walk over, nod politely, and just say... Mr. And you don't have your name up, do you? You do. There you go. Patrick, right? There you go. Mr. O'Malley, thank you for your invitation.
Oh, thank you for meeting me. It's please make yourself comfortable.
Thank you. You'll take a seat.
I was very pleased with our discussion last time, but I thought it would be good if we could have a slightly more constructive conversation away from all the children. I don't quite know what some of them were thinking, but it was a little...
Based on my last interaction, I would say some of them do not think at all.
Some of them are very young. Some of them don't have that excuse. But, well, as you know, our sect does tend to embrace the diverse spectrum of humanity.
Well, I'm more than interested in hearing what you have to say. If I can assist in any way, just let me know.
Thought for a moment. So, I mean, just to clarify, I asked you last time if there were any particular holdings that you wanted to identify to us as yours so that we could make sure we don't accidentally attack them or mistake them as Camarilla holdings. I know you wanted to speak to your own people to get an answer.
That was actually OC. That was actually posted after that scene. After I'd gotten hold of Evan, essentially boiled down to, I think it was anything to do with finances is their game. Like not anything that has money, but like anything to do with the financial districts, banking, investment firms. That's our gig. Also, our only real territory, quote unquote, is around this one hotel for like maybe basically that block.
Right.
That the hotel is at.
Okay, no, thank you. But I've not had a great deal of dealings with your family. I mean, obviously, I've heard. Well, we've all heard many rumors about each other, I'm sure. How can I put this? Is there anything else that I could do with knowing to know how to best interact with you? Would be appreciated. We've had experiences dealing with the Orientals and the docks, and they have their own very extreme and exotic customs that they like to enforce on anyone who deals with them. And I would hate to cause any offence by not understanding your own customs.
My job is to be a liaison with your sect, so it's my job to not get offended if you do anything that would normally cause offense. However, if you're just asking how to avoid making any faux pas, I'm not from so exotic a climate as that. Just, if you would, do me the courtesy of telling me things as straight as you can. Greatly appreciated.
That's useful to know. There are some people who value polite lies and indirect comments, but if you're the sort of man who would rather have things straight and direct, that is something I can certainly seek to accommodate.
I can understand not being allowed to speak on a matter or avoiding speaking on a matter. Just as I can't talk about the inner workings of my clan, I assume there are things you also cannot talk about with your group.
Indeed.
So other than finding ways not to piss us off, do you have anything else in mind?
As you know, or may know, one of the things that marks our sect is different to the Camarilla is that while the Camarilla is essentially a feudal court, as I understand it, they have a prince, they have lords, they have and so on and so on. And they have a feudal system. The Sabbath is more modeled on the denounce of the church. We have bishops, we have priests, we have rituals, we have rights. And as I understand it, please correct me if I go wrong here, you may know better than I, the Camarilla at least does keep some pretense of talking about the value of clinging to their humanity. Whereas, to a greater degree at least, there are those in the Sabbat who have follow alternate faiths, paths, roads. I'm not sure what the best term would be.
I don't believe that. From what little I remember, the bit about the feudal court, that's pretty accurate. As far as most of them following the so-called path of humanity, trying to keep themselves human, maybe the younger ones do that. The older ones, I very much doubt it.
I accept your words at face value. You say you may know best now. We encountered the Nosferatu Hennessy, who openly preaches his path of honourable accord.
Indeed, I didn't know that.
Made his acquaintance.
Rather surprised that any of your sect would meet theirs and not be openly fighting them.
He was sufficiently confident in his power that he felt he could talk to us. And he is a creature of great power. We have fought him. He was injured. He was not slain. He is still active as far as I know. He is their sheriff, I think is his title here.
That's usually their muscle, as I understand it. At least the visible muscle.
So, I'm, and I know the Tremere Prince is still active. I have no idea what path he follows. He certainly claimed great age. He claimed to have been at the Convention of Thorns.
He looks at you kind of funny and tilts his head. How long have you been? How long since you stopped drawing breath? If you want to put it that way.
You think so a moment? What would be on now? I've still got a bit of way to go to get to my first century.
Still, that's pretty impressive. Older than me, I'll be quite honest.
For much of that time, I ran with a pack on this island within Camarilla territory. So we were operating undercover rather than in the open as we are now. It was a different time.
Understood.
I'm sure you've heard of the so-called Troubles in Ireland.
I remember it from the history books.
So where were we? Yes, the differences with the Camarilla and the Sabbat. As you say, the younger ones of the Camarilla, they see the claims to their humanity. The older, their elders, some doubtless follow paths like Hennessy. I'm not sure what paths. They don't stop to discuss them. I can't imagine what path the Tremere follow.
I honestly couldn't say. I haven't dealt too much with them. And I can be quite frank, not at all since coming to the city.
Well, you can imagine we've not dealt with them on friendly terms.
And we are strictly neutral. But given you hold the center, I think any contact between us and anyone other than you is unlikely, unless your hold on the center were to break and you were to flee the city, in which case we would probably continue as normal. But
we have our own people who follow the Pathfinder like Hennessy. We have other people that follow other paths, some quite exotic or very limited to their own lineage.
You seem very curious about these paths. What path are you on?
Humanity. I have not been taught another path. Humanity has served me well for my existence, but recent events have started to convince me otherwise.
Losing your grip?
That's probably one way of putting it. Let's just say I've fought on enough battlefields and killed too many people. There comes a point in your life where you stop mourning for the faceless enemy that you've shot.
Yeah, it's rather hard to get back, from what I understand.
And well, you know, I am a Buja. You know the affliction of my clan, I'm sure.
You have something of a temper, as I understand it.
We do our best to rein it in, but we will have our crosses to bear. I certainly don't revel in it, but as I said, we all have our crosses to bear. So, I mean, we spoke of the Camarilla of the Sabbat. I mean, perhaps you could fill in some blanks for me as your own sect. What path do the Giovanni favour?
That tends to vary. I don't think any one group follows just one path, any more than you or the Camarilla would. We have our own ways. I can tell you quite honestly, I don't follow the same path as most of my family.
No. Now you've made me curious. What led you to your current path?
Differences of opinion in certain regards to way business was handled. But since I still run it very efficiently, it hasn't caused any problems.
It can't be easy if you're walking a different road to your your fellows. I would assume also your superiors.
Well, it helps when the precepts of your particular path tell you to obey your superiors and your comrades. And, well, if most of them follow a different path, I'm still obligated to do as they say.
I can see why they would be satisfied with that arrangement.
They know they can rely on me.
That's certainly commendable. Did you give up humanity very quickly then, or did something happen?
It didn't take me long. I think there was maybe a year or two of resistance, but we're pretty good at breaking that down.
Oh, it's quite deliberate then.
Yes, in many cases. Though what path the person takes, that's more up to who's teaching them. As it happens, I am also on this, as you call it, the path of honorable accord. I am a knight, if you care to use an archaic term like that.
Does that fit your vocation in life? I mean, were you
I've had
man of arms in life?
There is nothing in the path of honorable accord that says one cannot kill their foes. It's all to do with how you do it and when and why.
So, I mean, you're having a disadvantage. You understand. You understand the path of humanity. You understand my current point. I'm not entirely clear as to yours now. So you believe it's acceptable to kill when it's honourable, when it's needed, when you're following orders?
It depends on the circumstances. The way it was explained to me, and this is in brief, I am not an expert on the other paths. I understand humanity because I used to follow it, and I was once human. I'd like to think most vampires could at least, or K-Knights if you prefer, could at least get their head around the concept, even if they've forgotten what it means to feel. But there are some paths that are trying to retain your humanity. There are some paths where you try to destroy your own humanity. And there are some paths that give you a completely different focus. Mine is one of those. There are ethics to the path, as there would be in any other. With humanity, I assume it mostly boils down to try not to be an asshole and try not to do too much shit that's going to strip away your good parts.
Well, that's the gist of it. Try to be a humane being, and that we all do bad things, but remember they're bad things.
And that's fairly difficult to maintain in either your sect or my clan. Not impossible, I assume. You could get lucky, but depending on what jobs you're doing,
it's fairly difficult for any soldier to maintain. Never mind our existence. It's very difficult for any freedom fighter to maintain.
There are, if you're curious, I can teach you a tiny bit about the path. Doesn't hurt. We don't consider it a secret, and it's certainly not a secret of my clan, as I said, it's very rarely practiced in my clan.
But please, go on.
There are 6 main ethics. Number 1, always keep your word and honor your agreements. Your word is your bond. If you break your word, then what are you? You don't have anything.
So when you say word, is that like any word in casual conversation, or is that a promise? Or
I think that depends more on your own personal interpretation, but the way I've always seen it and the way my master saw it, if you say you're going to do something, you'd better do it. And if you're in the habit of saying things you don't mean, you might want to be cautious about that.
So if you...
It's one thing to say an expletive or something that you don't mean, or to say something out of anger, but if you promise to do something in all seriousness, you better do it. Any questions on that one, or should I move to the next one?
Thinking. So, but if you say that you'll do something and you try as hard as you possibly can, but are prevented.
No path is perfect. We all stumble at some point or another. If you fail to keep your word or honor your agreements on something, then you'll likely have a problem. You might find yourself slipping on the path. But
I suppose there's a question there of exactly what you say. Does this result in playing word games?
If you swear to do your utmost to accomplish a task, then that is very different from swearing it will be done.
Yeah,
that tiny difference is important.
Yeah, I can see there are careful lessons to learn here in how one speaks.
Yes.
But yet the speech act becomes even more important. Oh, I know that from life. Sexy back. Sorry, please go on.
The second ethic, never show cowardice. Essentially, this is why I asked. You said you had met the Tremere Prince, or no? You said you had met the Nosferatu sheriff, who you are a sworn enemy of.
Yes.
If he had shown any hostile intent, and you had simply fled, that would be cowardice. If he killed one of your comrades and you stood by and did nothing because you feared what would happen, that would be cowardice.
Perhaps I could give you some context to that. He issued a challenge to a single duel with someone, and a group of us met with him for the duel, and insults were thrown and a general melee broke out. So the duel did not properly happen, and he captured a person left himself.
You said insults were thrown.
Someone stupid insulted his honor. I hope it does not surprise you by now to know that someone may have said something stupid around here.
No, it does not. That is actually... If someone had insulted his honor, I am not surprised he went to attack them.
I think he signaled he had a sniper to cover him that he signaled. But that was a bystander attacking another bystander, so outside the remit of the duel, technically.
Yes.
I had to think about this through. Our paladins were quite sure that the honourable duel happened, and of course I had to report all this. But sorry, go on. So showing cowardice. So in that case, if I attended there to witness an honourable duel and did not participate in my comrade being slain in that duel, I assume
that is not cowardice. That is a honorable duel taking place between two of your equals, or an equal and a better in this case, if you don't mind admitting that the man is that much more powerful than yourself.
I have happy to admit he's far more powerful than. Well,
then if it is a duel taken in honor and both parties agree to it, then it is not your concern. If the duel is violated and it simply becomes, as you said, a general melee, then you are as responsible to protect your comrades in arms as you would be in any other circumstance. That's another ethic. We'll get to that.
Okay. Okay, so cowardice. But
it's very important to make a distinction here. Cowardice does not mean you can never leave the field of battle. It means you can't flee out of self-preservation. If you're running because you're scared, that's cowardice. If you are leaving because you need to protect something else that you swore to protect, such as if you swore, I'm not the most familiar with your ways, but let's say you made an oath to protect all in your pack from harm, and you believed the only way to protect them was to get them away from this man, then your job would be to put yourself in harm's way and have them leave. And if the man doesn't attack you, you can go with them to protect them.
I mean,
they're your charges.
What about when does courage ever become vainglory? I mean, if Emperor Mithras was to walk in that door, I could vaingloriously attack him and die, or I could withdraw to fight another day and marshal my forces. Would that be cowardice?
If he walked in here and made a move to attack you, and you simply fled the room to protect yourself, that would be cowardice.
Part of my... See, I'm thinking back to the time when I was operating with a pack in this country when it was Camelot territory. We were, as you can imagine, we were mobile, we were undercover, we were doing what we could, we were fighting the good fight where we could.
Mm-hmm.
Is that obviously we're not fighting pitch battles? We're doing hit and run, we're doing underhand guerrilla warfare. Is there room on this path for a guerrilla?
OC, give me 1 second to double check that, because I think the answer is yes, but let me see. See, it depends on your interpretation of dishonorable at that point, but if you're not actively engaged, let's see. It doesn't say showing cowardice. That's for fleeing. Breaking your failing to honor agreement. Failing to uphold the precepts of your group. Let's see. Place for ritual ceremony. Sorry, not trying to delay on this. I'm just trying to make absolutely sure before I say anything on this.
That's obviously reflected, and I suspect it's not going to be in that. So it'll be one of those weird argue it lest you call it situations.
Well, let's see. I'm just double checking one thing real fast. Okay.
When you said about a group, I mean, if that is the modus operandi of your group,
you are supposed to maintain, and this is the highest pinnacle of the path. You are supposed to do as your group would do as far as upholding their precepts and principles, except where they come into conflict with this.
So, I mean, in Ireland, we used to have terrorists called the IRA and others, groups, who would plant bombs and obviously not hang around for the bomb to go off and remote detonate bombs. Now, is that cowardice, or is that following the precepts of their group, or both?
If you were to engage in combat and flee, that would possibly be cowardice. If you are simply striking by leaving a weapon behind that will do damage, I don't believe the path is totally clear on that. If you yourself viewed it as cowardice, then it would likely be cowardice for you. Interpretation does determine part of this.
I don't suppose they had that kind of war for bombs, at least, when the path was developed.
No, not likely.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps you should go on.
Let's see. He's thinking. Third, duty comes before personal matters. So if you have made a promise, if you have a duty to uphold, that has to be done before your own personal interests. If you have, I'd say it's not unheard of. Let's say you had someone in your pack that you were overly fond of, and they were to do something which endangered your pack or would cause you to be forced to choose between them or your oath. Your oath comes first.
I can envision difficulties where people are bloodbound to another, but that is true of any path. Or that could be because kind of duty. If someone who is bound is serving their master, would that be considered their duty?
Your best, in the example I just gave, your best hope would be to try and convince the person who is standing between you and your duty to stand aside, or to change their actions so that they are no longer an impediment between you and your duty. If you are unable to convince them, however, then you would have to deal with them.
Yes. Okay. So persuasion.
That doesn't mean you necessarily have to kill them, of course. I mean,
words and persuasion are also actions.
Exactly. Or leaving someone staked or something else. There's nothing in the path that says you must kill your foes.
Okay.
It's usually very efficient, though, I've found.
Okay. Well, I think that point is I can understand. But duty, of course, is that one decides who one gives one's duty to. I assume at some level, at some point.
Knights always need a lord. It may not have that exact title, but in your pack, do you hold the ultimate authority?
Well, in my pack, obviously there are those above me in the Sabbat.
In your pack, you are the lord. You are the knight who has, I guess you would say, command over it.
Yes.
You have authority to do as you need within that. But you answer to someone else, one of these bishops, as you said. That your duty is to them, just as their duty is to whoever comes above them, and so on and so forth in an unbroken chain. You have to make sure you're not the weak link. If your bishop has told you to follow a certain creed or to do something, it is your duty to uphold those commands to the death if need be.
Okay. I was more thinking, I fully understand if someone is in a sect or a hierarchy, then they have a duty there. They have clearly established. If one was also faithful, as some kindred are, after our law presupposes the Bible and the Lord, would one also have a duty to God? Or does one decide whether that has a duty to God or not?
That may get a little complicated. In my own clan, if you haven't noticed, a lot of us are Catholic. But
Italy is a very Catholic country, as is Ireland.
But that said, we consider that to be a personal matter. And duty would come before that. However, in your case, as I said, it might be a gray area simply because, as you said, the laws that you're sworn to uphold may involve your religion. In which case, if you are enforcing them and you believe them, that's fine. If you're enforcing them and you still don't believe them, that's still fine.
Well, I mean, they don't. I suppose this is less of an issue in the modern world. The church is less active, but I keep thinking. You spoke of knights. I keep thinking of this path in times of old. I mean, if the Pope declares a crusade, I can't believe that's going to happen ever again. Does that mean everyone on this path who believes in God will have to march off on crusade?
No, as I said, religion is usually considered a personal matter.
Okay.
And usually they would have duties to their lords. If their lord told them to go, that would be different.
There's explicitly duty to a hierarchy or a direct leader. Not
if those in your pack followed this path, they would have duty to you as their leader. You would have duty to your bishop. They would have duty to someone above them.
I see. Okay, I think that was. I mean, I was also I expect that's the same. I was just thinking about if someone is, if a patriot, if they feel a sense of duty to their fatherland, or is it not abstract duty? It's only direct duty?
Abstract duty can often be determined to be personal. You may have a personal feeling of loyalty towards the church. You may have a personal feeling of loyalty to your country. But specific loyalties, in my opinion, should trump the more, as you said, abstract ones. But that is my personal opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you want me to move on to the next one?
Actually, no. There was one other point. Suppose someone has a duty to their lord. Suppose their lord betrays them in some way. Does that terminate the obligation of duty?
That actually brings me to the fourth ethos. Treat your equals and your betters, and that includes your lord, fairly and equitably. However, the dishonorable are beneath your contempt. if you were betrayed by your bishop, it would be your duty to deal with that betrayal appropriately and then find yourself another lord, another bishop.
Mm. So there's a duty to challenge in that case,
or to exact proper retribution for. It's not. That's you have a duty to make it.
That's interesting. So if Hennessy was to believe that his prince had somehow betrayed him, would he then be obligated to challenge his prince?
By my interpretation, most likely. One of the other ethics is to always repay your debts. Many people who are new to this would probably think that means, oh, if you promise to pay someone, pay them. But I personally view that to mean if you are betrayed, you must pay back that betrayal in full. Exact upon them the same sort of pain that they have caused you.
I see. So there is a proportionality to it then?
I would personally say so, yes. There's no room for... This is not so much a matter of revenge as it is balancing the scales.
So can you just remind me what this fourth tenet was?
Treat your equals and your betters fairly and equitably. The dishonorable are beneath your contempt. By the way, when he's reading off these ethics, it's, as if he's got them memorized.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. And what if... But is there anything about lessers?
Lessers are more up to your own personal interpretation. If they have honor, then, if they have honor, in some ways, they could be determined your equals. But if they are your subordinates, or the subordinates of another pack, let's say, if they are dishonorable, they're beneath your contempt. If they have honor, which that's, in this day and age, that's harder to find, obviously. If they are honorable, I'd say treat them as if they were your equal.
And if someone is in hierarchy, my equal or my better, but is also on a different path, they're not honorable.
It's not that simple. Not everyone who is on the path is everyone who is on a different path is dishonorable.
Okay, I feel like if they are manifestly dishonorable, if they're doing lying, they're doing sneaky, underhand, backstabbing deals.
If they lie, they break their word, they betray people, that sort of thing, yes, that makes them dishonorable. Thieves, murderers, and backstabbers, as you put it.
Would that would that not mean if my better was dishonorable, would I? There are two statements in this clause. They would appear to contradict.
Is that person your direct lord, or are they simply someone with higher rank than you who is not directly your lord?
Suppose they were my direct lord.
If they're your direct lord, you would have to find yourself someone else to work for. My personal interpretation.
Okay. Thank you.
However, and OC Solon is also looking at that. Because the level 6 threshold there is disobeying your leader. Loyalty is the keystone of hierarchy.
I mean, yeah, I can fully appreciate that. Clearly, humans are capable of being honourable. And clearly, some of humans are honourable, as well as being on the path of humanity. So I can certainly accept people on other paths can choose to act with honour. They can live honourable lives. They err as we all err.
Humans are little more than... I'll be honest. I don't think much about humans. Ghouls, we have a use for. Humans who are doing their job, fine, let them do their job. But if I saw one dying in the street before me and I didn't have any business with them, I'd keep walking.
But that's your choice, isn't it? You could interfere if you wanted to. There would be no...
I could. I don't feel any twinges of pity or anything like that. Haven't in years.
he looks like he's deep in thought of that, just thinking over, what's that? What's that like? And also thinking that that's not entirely so far from where he is already.
Exactly.
Actually, I mean, you'll be able to tell he's clearly looks like he's on low humanity. He's sufficiently low already that's quite obvious. I was trying to figure if you actually knew him before he had his last humanity loss. I'm not entirely sure on the dates.
Might have done. We'll just assume he looks a little worse today.
But certainly, yeah, clearly looks, yeah, low humanity. Okay, so where were we? That was that the fourth tenet of serving equals and betters. And you say what was the fifth tenet?
First one is always keep your word, honor your agreements. Second is never show cowardice, overcome your fears. Third is duty comes before personal matters. Fourth is treat your equals and betters fairly and equitably, the dishonorable beneath your contempt. Fifth is always repay your debts.
As you say,
that is both a good and a bad thing. Debts come in many forms. Someone does you a favor, you're obligated to return that favor. Someone does you a disservice, you're obligated to seek some retribution at some point. Sooner as opposed to later, preferably. But decorum is also a thing, if possible.
And a debt's always personal. So if
they can be, but they could also be. That's a good one. That's an interesting point.
If the Tremere wrong me, do I the debt of vengeance to all Tremere or to the individual?
Depends. I would say to the individual, but that's just me. Okay. If it was a proclamation by their clan, and let's just say, God forbid, if you ever find yourself in that situation, then you would have to seek vengeance on the entire clan, at least equaling whatever they had inflicted on you.
Or, I mean, to take another example, suppose an evil Tremere killed my child.
Then you would want to find that Tremere and kill their child, or them if they don't have one.
Even though their child is innocent.
Correct.
There could be, but yes.
From what I know of the Tremere, they're probably dishonorable.
That's a very hypothetical question. Yes. Yes, though Hennessy had no issue serving one.
If they were his superior and he believed them to have some shreds of honor, then perhaps. But you don't seem to know much about this Tremere prince, and nor do I, so...
what was his name? Steinberg, something like that. There was a brief discussion. I can't say I know very much about him. He claimed great age, and he demonstrated the power to. Well, he made himself disappear by walking through a portal he opened.
Interesting.
But again, he walked away, and no one was prepared to attack him because he was clearly deemed too powerful to face.
There's only one other ethos.
Yes.
Support your comrades at arms in all things, except where they counsel treachery. So essentially, those who fight on the same side as you, it is your duty to protect them and to help them in all things. And that's a very broad statement. If they ask you for help in something to do with war, definitely. If they ask you to come by and spend a night at the club with them, that's a little more optional. But if ever one of your comrades in arms should suggest hey, why don't we go betray our leader or kill this other person who's a comrade of ours, then you have to consider them dishonorable.
And that would...
It would be your duty to deal with them.
But if they're asking for supported a not combat related situation, as you say,
then it's more up to your interpretation.
I guess they're not a comrade in arms in that context.
Essentially.
I mean, I know there was certainly much of this seems to make sense to me. I can understand the basic ideas of be a, shall we say, a decent, honourable person. You know, even to a human, that doesn't sound like an unreasonable concept.
The difference is a human will get clouded by emotions. You're still going to have anger. That never goes away. As far as I know, I don't think there's a single path that would ever do that. The beast is part of you.
Quite.
But you're going to find things to focus on. Honor, law, order, fairness, duty. That sort of thing. Things like compassion, humanity, those are going to fall away. You won't find yourself with a desire so much to kill people unless your beast is provoked. But
that can happen regardless.
Exactly. You're not going to find yourself in significant trouble if you randomly attack them, unless they were, I suppose, serving as your comrades at arms at the time, in which case that would definitely be an issue.
That would be an issue for humanity in any case. There are some paths people walk in the Sabbat where they give in to their frenzy. They try to steer it. They revel in it, to my eyes, and they think that makes them good in combat. In my experience, it causes more problems than it's worth. There are times when frenzy is very undiplomatic.
It happens to the best of us.
But still, there are. It is always a risk. But there is, to me, I see a difference between humanity where we do our best to stop the frenzy, and if it happens, we can try to redirect it out of the way. And there is paths where they actively give in to their frenzy and ride it. They don't resist in the same way. They don't even try. Do you understand what I mean?
Oh, see, I totally do. In character, he would, but I forget if these guys actually do that.
As in, is it self-control or instinct?
It's self-control.
Right.
So this one is a try to avoid it.
Yes.
If it helps any, just as humanity has their own sins to bear, things you try to avoid, don't randomly kill people. Honorable Court has the same, but it's not the same. The easiest, or should I say the most core, how to put this, something that you would never want to do. Do not break your word or oath. Don't fail to uphold an agreement. Pretty simple. Reflects the precepts I told you earlier.
Yes.
The next one is killing without reason. You don't want to kill, which, by the way, if you frenzy and you randomly lash out and kill a couple people, there's no real reason other than your own failure.
Yes.
That's not much of a reason.
Friends in an established combat to defeat an opponent that you're trying to
that could be very different then. If you were allowing yourself to frenzy in the hopes that you would defeat an enemy and there was collateral damage, that'd be different. As opposed to simply frenzying in a crowded elevator.
Now that's an interesting point. Suppose I was to plant a bomb to blow up the Tremere Prince, but it was to kill some innocent bystanders.
They would be dying for cause. It's also very important. Most of the other precepts in this case reflect what I've already told you. Failing to protect your allies is a serious issue. Disobeying your leader is a serious issue.
Is there
You also need to participate in whatever your group's rituals and traditions are.
That's not a, we have them. That's not a problem. Is there anything about interacting with one's lessers, with those are the one's command?
Your lessers are yours to deal with as you see fit. As long as you keep your word with them, shouldn't be a problem. As long as you don't kill them simply out of spite, shouldn't be a problem. If they fail you, if they give you a significant reason to kill them, then that's up to you. I find it's much easier to have employees who know what they're doing and to give them sufficient chances.
Someone has been speaking to me about the Path of Power. Have you heard of this?
I might have heard it mentioned at some point.
Obviously, that's very much more about self-mastery and mastery of others, and command, and nothing. And I can see the attraction. I don't think it's suited to me. I was just wondering about the differences between their view and the Path of Honor.
There is one serious issue, though, and this, I imagine, would be as difficult for you as it is for me, unless you were very fortunate in your choices of pack members and bishops and so on and so forth. You are not supposed to, while you are on this path, associate with those that you deem to be dishonorable. You are supposed to serve as an example, not be dragged down into pettiness.
That's well, we live in a world full of dishonorable people.
Again, this is something I can understand.
And I mean, I could well see where that idea comes from, that you should not, as you say. Well, I don't know. I assume if you spend time with dishonorable people to try to teach them the merits of honor, to get them to bend their ways. I mean, Jesus spent his life with the sinful.
True, but you're not supposed to be a prophet in this case. You're supposed to serve as an example. If those people want to learn about honor, you can always tell them about it, but that association may cost you a little.
So if my pack was to act in, if I found that an individual was acting in dishonorable ways, and I established to my satisfaction they were a dishonorable person, and not on a one or two occasions, they were a generally dishonorable person. Maybe they'd been a criminal in life.
It would be your duty to either fix them, make them mend their ways, and if that doesn't look likely, I don't know how your people deal with that sort of thing if you have the authority to simply kill them, but sometimes that's simpler. Sometimes people just won't learn.
Yeah, so I mean, my acceptance of this would bind my pack. They would
need to
uphold some
minimum
standards of honor, or face the consequences.
Essentially,
they may not internalize it, but they must externalize it.
Essentially, if you have cause to believe that they're simply giving you lip service, that's an entirely separate issue.
Yeah. We had some similar issues with the Hennessy affair, where those of our sect who followed the Path of Honor started insisting, no, this is an honourable duel now. We'll step in if anyone tries to interfere with it. Because you can well imagine there were people who wanted all sorts of creative, underhand opportunities at this duel.
Which goes against the entire purpose of it.
And the Paladins then stepped in and said, no, we have issues with that.
I can imagine they would. If they had not noticed you planning this, or not you, I suppose, but if they had noticed these people planning these events and had then
discovered after the fact that this other person, the sheriff, had been defeated by treachery, they probably would have killed you. Well, again, not you, but
No, but the people concerned.
yes.
Yes, there was there was general dissatisfaction with how people handled that incident, as you can imagine. But the person chief responsible did not make it back in any case. So this is certainly more than just honourable conduct in war. This is a whole way of life.
You ever heard of Bushido?
Heard of, yes.
It's got a couple similarities.
Well,
Not identical.
I mean, yeah, Bushido's pretty brutal, isn't it? You know, killing peasants for looking at you funny.
Can be. I don't do too much of that myself, but I also don't associate with them too much.
I know, I never got a sense that these Orientals are actually particularly honourable, at least not as we would consider honour. They have a pretense and a face of honour, but it's not true honour. I mean, let's face it, all the talk the Japanese had of honour, it didn't stop them at Pearl Harbor.
That sets a very dangerous precedent, judging an entire people by one set of actions.
Well,
I'd recommend anytime you're concerned about that, judge the individual by their actions, or judge the organization by their actions.
Well, their government and their military in that case, but or at least all those military officers who took part in Pearl Harbor. No, you would have thought, given the Bushido talk of their traditions of honor, that some of them might have had moral objections.
Possibly some did.
Maybe they just
I can't speak to that. I'm not a history expert.
No. I'm certainly not an expert, and certainly not on that part of the world. It looks like he's pausing to give this thought. The cogs are turning. He's trying to sink this in. And you've been on this path for some decades?
A decent stretch of time. You know, you don't seem like too horrible of an individual so far. You haven't lied to me so far that I know of. If you wanted, we could meet like this a couple times, and I could teach you more of the details. There's more nuance to what I've said.
Yeah, I think I would appreciate that. I think I need time to think on this and let it sink in, and maybe come up with some more questions about the complex cases and fill this out.
It's entirely understandable. However, I should point something out. While I do have a decent amount of free time these days,
yes.
If I were to take the time to do that, I would expect something in the term of compensation, not money. We've got plenty of that.
Of course. Would tuition in discipline be appropriate?
You're a Bruja, right?
Yes.
I've heard Bruja have abilities to twist people with their emotions, to unsettle them or to convince them.
To inspire fear or love, or yes.
That might be interesting.
Yes. Well, I don't want to give you a commitment at this moment. I want to go away and think about: is this the path I want to walk? I will let you know. I will let you know either way, and if I decide that this is the path that I should, for now, pursue, then I will be happy to teach you that in exchange for your tuition.
And if you decide to do so at that time, let me know, and we'll be able to see what we can work out.
Thank you.
At that point, if you need an excuse for the scene to come to a close, I could actually say that by this point, his cell phone's probably going. Zzz, zzz, zzz.
I'm just. You said that. I mean, this path is rare in your clan. I mean, I don't want to pry as to what other paths your clanmates prefer, but why is this path not more popular?
He just kind of looks at you. You remember when we had that discussion back in back in your place, and there were some rather new people asking who my family were and what we did.
Yes.
Not everyone in The Godfather is exceptionally honorable, and while that is a stereotype, there are a lot of people like that.
I know. I mean,
and even if they're not members of my family, which some are, a lot of the people we work with are.
I can see the issue there with people you work with. I perhaps don't know enough about your family, or I perhaps imagined, say, if we use The Godfather as an example, that they like the samurai. They have some gentleman's code of their own.
Some do. Like I said, there are a few who practice it, but it's much more common for them to be more focused on other things, which, again, I can't really speak to the details of that.
I vaguely remember the stories of Al Capone. I mean, he had a certain code to his business.
Mm-hmm. There are ways to pursue this business and do so, but it usually works best when you're already at the top. If you have people above you telling you to do things which are dishonorable, as I just said, you start running into complications.
Yes. Many things work better when you're at the top. But then, and you know, people at the top have further to fall and more people out of their job. Thank you. This has been giving me a lot to think about.
It's quite all right.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about with me while we're here?
Not particularly. I've been busy dealing with business lately.
Oh. I hope at least the context on Hennessy is of some interest.
It is. Don't really think we're going to do too much direct interaction with them, as I said. It's always good to know. And perhaps you knowing a little bit about this, even if you decide not to go that route, might give you some insight as to his behavior.
Yes, certainly. On that note, there was something else which did surprise us. He had two gang war with him, which joined the fight after General Melee ensued. When he left, he pressed the device, and the gang war exploded. As in, they would look like they'd been implanted with bombs. Now, this is not something I was expecting from the Camarilla.
Seems a little bit brutal.
You haven't heard of anything like this before, have you?
No. Hell of a good idea, though.
And makes you wonder just how voluntary in service were those gang war.
It's a good question. If this sheriff you were speaking about is on the path of honorable accord, then it's very unlikely that he ever told them that he would protect them or avoid hurting them. Otherwise, he'd be breaking his word. They were likely no more than disposable guardians.
I don't know. Is it possible? Yeah, he considers them as beasts. Maybe
essentially.
How old or how devolved they were.
Quite possible. If they're both dead, there's not much you can do to determine the specifics. If you're able to capture one in the future, that'd be interesting. But
that would be problematic for obvious reasons.
There are ways to jam short-range signals.
I'm
not personally skilled in such things, but
so okay. Well, I wanted nothing else. Share you that list of information warning in case you should run into them. But
good to know.
Well, no, I can't think of I can't think of anything else. I think you've given me, perhaps on mine is empty because you've given me too much to think about, and I need to go and digest all of this.
Quite understandable. It's a lot to take in. He'll get to his feet.
Thank you. Offer hand to handshake.
Yep, he'll take it and shake it. Grip's cold because, not even on humanity. He's not pretending. He's not wasting blood on it.
Okay, well, until next time then.
Indeed. Good night, Mr. O'Malley. And he'll make his way out with his bodyguards.
Leave it there.
And I will hit the button. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. Another scene in Darkness in Dublin.